Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 11 of But First Football. I am here with my good friend Von Parker, our resident football phenom, 11 seasons in the NFL. And I am Kim Beal, the self-proclaimed, I don't know, I can't speak today, self-proclaimed First Lady of Football Fandom and Fashion. Such a clever title. But we're here in the very slow month of July, 2 weeks out from training camp in most cases, maybe some a little bit less. But we are here to talk about our favorite F words, football and fashion and family and food and fun and philanthropy and all that stuff. So we're going to get started on our football fundamental segment where Mr. Von Parker is going to take us through this week some offensive schemes and strategies. So very excited to hear about some of these things. And I also will put in my request before you start. I want to know what your favorite play ever is.
Oh, that's easy.
Oh, okay.
Victory for me.
Okay, just the V, the big V.
That's been my answer for years.
It's a good one.
Mission accomplished. Victory formation. Yeah.
It's a good one.
You know what? As I approach this is just, there's a million different ways to accomplish what I'm trying to get done, what we're trying to get done as an offense. And it really comes down to the basics of what offensive football is. We're trying to move the ball down the field, attacking the defense to score points by one of two ways: running the ball or throwing the ball. And while it sounds simple, it can get very complicated. The task is simple, like knowing what to do is simple, but it takes many very forms, and the philosophies behind it are there's a million of those as well. So there's 1,000 different touch points, but it really comes down to what dictates how you go about it is your individual team philosophy. And that means in terms of the complementary football, are we a big, strong physical team, maybe not quite as skilled? Then maybe we want to run the ball more, slow the game down in terms of letting the clock run out, not give the other team as many opportunities. But then that means defensively and special teams wise, well, then we can't be a gambling defense because we're designed not to come back. We're not going to score a ton of points. We have to be strategic in how we knowing that we're not going to score a lot of points, so we can't gamble on defense and try to get turnovers. We have to play bend but don't break defense, meaning it's very difficult to go 80 yards, right? Average kickoff is going to be kicked into the end zone. You'll get the ball at 25. Team has to go 75, 80 yards, and it's difficult for you. The defense is almost account for the offense not being able to play mistake-free football for 10, 13 to 12 plays in a row. And at some point, they'll either kick the ball back to us or we'll get a turnover.
Can I ask a question, Vaughn, before you go on? Is your style determined typically by the head coach? So let's just say, like, what's his name? Dominio, the guy in Houston. He was a defensive coordinator, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then, like, on the flip side, Kyle Shanahan was an offensive coordinator. So
yes.
Is the head coach kind of who dictates the style of team that you are?
In part, definitely that has a lot to do with it, but the GM also plays a part because the GM hires the coach, right? And typically very few instances where the GM just, it's a unilateral decision on his part. Typically, they put committees together within the organization, within ownership, within management, and come to a decision as a group. Now, maybe there's a person who ultimately pulls the trigger and decides this guy or that guy, but everyone has a say in, hey, well, what do we need in terms of leadership? What is the current makeup of our team? We can only turn over the roster so much in a year or two. So what do we anticipate our physical style is, the style of our players? So that all dictates. So from whether you pick a defensive coach or an offensive-minded head coach plays a huge role. Like a lot of teams, the current kind of conventional wisdom is that if you have a young up-and-coming quarterback, you want to have an offensive minded head coach. And I've never necessarily agreed with that, just because that offensive coordinator who is working with that kid every day has so much more influence over him than the head coach sometimes, right? Unless, like an Andy Reid, who kind of does control the offense. But in a lot of cases, the head coach, even if he is an offensive guy, isn't necessarily in that meeting room day in, day out every time with that guy. So you can have a
Right.
great offensive coordinator, still have a very successful relationship between that young guy. But even sometimes the weather for a particular game will dictate some of how you go about your offensive game plan. Like I sticking out in the head, it was a couple of years ago, the Patriots were playing in Buffalo, and they were just having gale force winds. And I think maybe they tried 2 or 3 passes the whole game because it was just so incredibly difficult to throw the ball. They had the young quarterback, and they didn't want to put him in a bad situation, whereas he lost the game versus
Oh,
kind of
yes.
protect him with the game plan, right?
I
So
remember
there's a
that.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so, but if we're a very skilled on the outside, meaning receivers, running backs, tight ends, and we are an explosive offense, then hey, we can take some gambles on defense, and it all makes plays together in terms of complementary football. And that's the main. But I think the Patriots at least kind of made it famous nowadays. Complementary football, meaning the offense, defense, and special teams all work together. And, we're not going to be a big physical, run the ball, let the top run out, but then we're going to gamble on offense because that puts us behind potentially, and we're not designed to come back from behind. Whereas the Chiefs can score from anywhere on the field. So
Yep.
their defense, they can erase some of the mistakes that maybe perhaps their defense or special teams make, so they can take more chances, right? So that's where you kind of start with everything before you
So
even get to the nose.
I have this like vision of all the offensive coordinators and their assistants in a room, like scheming and drawing up all these plays.
Yeah.
And is that pretty much how it works?
I mean, that's a huge part of it. The other thing that some people might know is that coaches, they have a lot of responsibilities, but during their off time, like this time of year, they're going to the University of wherever, Nebraska. They're going to USC, and sometimes they have friends there, and hey, well, let me see what they're doing. They had success. Let me see what they're doing over there. It's not going to happen so much pro team to pro team, but certainly if they have relationships or they reach out and say, hey, I want to go check this team out, or perhaps certain coaches have camps, and that's where the innovation comes from. It's incremental. Like there's really no secrets because everyone gets everyone else's film, but
Yeah.
the little innovations come in. Hey, here's how these handful of plays have been run for the last, call it 5 to 8 years. Well, here's the little twist I'm going to put on that concept that's going to make it different and give a new wrinkle. And then it's just incremental year after year after year. So, and the best way, I thought of the best way for me to illustrate this point, Tony Romo retires from football and becomes an analyst for CBS. Well, everyone was so amazed that first year, he was literally calling the plays just based off formations, shifts, and movements because he was so fresh out of the game. He recognized many of those things. And so he would know the play before it was even run. And everyone was just blown away by, oh man, it's awesome. Well, you cut to that second year for him, and he wasn't so sharp calling those plays because the game had just changed in that short of time that much. Here's a little twist on this. Here's a little twist on this shift, on this formation, on this motion. So it's constantly changing and evolving, and that's the cat and mouse game. You'll see an innovation if everyone can kind of remember when the Wildcat got popular, and Miami actually
So
ran that offense.
explain the Wildcat for people who don't know.
So the Wildcat offense was an offense where instead of a quarterback receiving the snap from the center, they would snap the football to a running back, and it was a very run-heavy first offense, but you can't just totally rely on the offense. You have to at least give the perception that you're going to throw. So they had a couple of wrinkles where they had a few passes off of it. But if I remember correctly, I think they were down a couple quarterbacks due to injury. And so this was their solution. Hey, we got a game this week. We're not going to give up. We're going to show up. So this is our way we're going to score points. And it was an offense that, at the time, because things move along no one had seen in a very long time. So they had a lot of initial success. And then everyone's, oh, well, we got a guy who's actually a thrower who can run. Well, let's put that offense in for this upcoming game, this upcoming year. So it got really popular with certain teams. But then defenses, they have this whole offense to break down your offense and see, hey, what are we doing? This is how we're going to defense it. So your window to have just be completely new and revolutionary is very small. I mean, these defensive coaches, they get paid too, right? That was always the same. The other team gets paid too. So they get paid to break down what you're doing and figure out a way to defend it. And so that's why it's a cat and mouse game between the offense innovation, defenses catching up, and then adding their own wrinkles to their defense to stop what you're doing. And and that's why it's the ultimate strategy game, which is, I think, why it's so exciting.
There's a few coaches that are more known perhaps for their trick plays than others who are like, they're more willing to take the risk to do like a reverse or
Right.
the old flea flicker,
Right.
plays like that. But I guess I saw it last night when I was watching the end of Receiver on Netflix. There was a reverse play in the 49ers ran it, I think, in the Super Bowl, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
But what would inspire a coach to go for one of those trick plays? What are they seeing on the field that makes them want to shake things up like that?
Well, I think many teams don't see them as trick plays. They just see them as an integral part of the offense. This is just another thing that we do, another wrinkle that we do. And as I'm prepared, say, because the coaches, that's the thing. The players have the luxury of preparing for the game that week. Whereas coaches, they get a minute here, a minute there. They're actually looking at game film for 3-4 games ahead, right? And so in their preparation, they see an opportunity. Hey, I know we've got this play in our back pocket. This defense that they're running in this situation perhaps gives us the opportunity to run a reverse, to run a gadget play. And sometimes it's just a simple matter of, hey, this is a player that we've got to find innovative ways to get him the ball because he's too good with the football in his hand. We've got to get him a certain amount of touches. Maybe he's a receiver where, maybe he'll be targeted 8 to 10 times in a game. Maybe he catches 5 or 6 of those, but hey, he's such a special talent. We need to find ways to get him the ball in his hand more often. And gadget plays are often a way that offensive coordinators figure out a way to do that.
Right, because some of these receivers are just constantly battling double coverage, and it's just the reality is there's no way they're gonna be able to catch a lot of those balls. So I like the term gadget play. I guess I never really thought of it that way. That's better than trick. Gadget.
No, I mean, some offensive coordinators refer to them as trick plays. It's just, it's just about who you are, who you came up under, how you learned it, right? I mean, it's all the same thing. But yeah, so I remember Cam Cameron, my offense coordinator for a few years, he just always, hey, it's just part of the offense. It's just another thing that we do. The reverse is just another run that we'll always have up and ready to go. Right. So
Vaughn, when a lineman reports as eligible for a receiver, I think that was made famous back in the Bears days when they used the refrigerator Perry to score,
in the back.
Yeah. So how does that work? Why do they have to report as a receiver? I don't know that people really know what that means.
So the quick way to say it is, so there are 5 offensive linemen that are designated, and when you approach the line of scrimmage, there's always going to be 7 people on the line of scrimmage. So 5 offensive linemen, and then the 2 people on the end, which is typically a receiver to one side and often a tight end to the other side. Now, the guys on the end of the line, the tight end and the receiver, are eligible receivers, meaning they don't have, so as offensive linemen, we have to wait until the ball is thrown before we can go down the field.
Right.
Otherwise, sometimes you'll see it called ineligible man downfield. Well, that's what that means.
Yeah.
You left too early. The quarterback still had the ball. It wasn't thrown. Well, the end guys, they're eligible, meaning they can catch the ball and they can leave before the ball is thrown to get into their routes. And so sometimes you can designate a defensive, an offensive line. Sometimes it's even a defensive lineman, but they can be played the tight end spot. Maybe goal line offense. I did that my first couple of years. I was the goal line tight end, and I would have to report to the referee every time to let him know, hey, while I'm wearing an ineligible number for this play, I can go out and I can catch the ball. Now, unfortunately, I never got that opportunity. They never trusted my hands enough. How much I tried to assure them that I would catch the ball, but I never got the opportunity. So just this past year, famously, Detroit tied the game with Dallas and ran the 2-point conversion to win the game. They catch the ball, but there was an issue with the ref.
Yep,
and it looked on film like the offensive lineman went and reported. They tell you, hey, get his attention. Don't just assume he's hearing you. Run up to him, let him know. That's what it looked like. But then and also, as the Detroit Lions said, they go through the script with the rest before the game and say, hey, on this play, this is what's going to happen. Now, you still have to do it, even though you give the ref a heads up, but there was some confusion with it. I'm not exactly sure what went wrong, but that's the reason, because certain numbers are ineligible to be designated receivers unless you report yourself as being eligible to the ref. And now the funny part for me, when I used to do it, all the vets would, trust me, I couldn't have forgotten if I wanted to, because it was like, as soon as the play would be, don't forget to report, Lord. Don't forget to report. hey, rookie, don't screw this up.
But they should have known the offensive line guys are the smartest guys on the team.
Exactly,
of course, you're not going to forget.
Exactly.
But when you report as an eligible receiver, you don't.
Yes.
You're still in your same position. You're just running through, or do you have to move?
Not necessarily, no. So we'd have our regular offensive line. I'd come in as the tight end, and I'd be in the tight end spot. But you can do some things with unbalanced lines. So this is a couple of years ago, the Patriots, because the Patriots dig into the rule book and just find a little advantage here, a little advantage there for the perfect time. They're playing the Baltimore Ravens, and they ran an unbalanced line, meaning instead of the typical offensive line setup is center, a guard on either side, and then a tackle on either side. Well, unbalanced line is when you take one of those tackles, say the left tackle, and you put him over on the right side. So it would be guard, center, guard, tackle, tackle. So that's an unbalanced line, and that's what New England was doing. But the lineman on the opposite side then has to report as eligible if he's the last man on the line, right?
Got it. Okay.
So it was confusing the Baltimore defensive line, and I think they ran it two or three times within the game, and they got a couple big plays off of it. So the Baltimore coaches complained to the league, and they ultimately outlawed the ability to do that because I guess it was so confusing. But it's really just a situation where New England dug into the playbook, dug into the rules, and figured out a way to cause confusion for the defense.
Those dirty Patriots.
So you can still run different formations. You don't have to line up at your normal position. But, because most teams, I would say probably at their goal line packages, replace the regular tight end with an offensive lineman who's going to play that position. Because you want, there's inches to go before a team scores. So you want to be bigger, heavier, and get more movement at the point of attack.
Yeah. I just remember that Super Bowl when the refrigerator got the touchdown and Walter Payton didn't. And it was, that was not
controversial.
That was pretty kind of, Mike Ditka always did say once he realized that he felt really bad about it, but they didn't see it coming. So I guess it was a smart play.
Yeah.
So I know we spoke a lot about quarterbacks last week, but in relation to what we're talking about today with the offensive schemes and strategies, how many quarterbacks are calling their own plays these days?
Ooh, that's a great question. The last one that I know of that they just turned the offense over to him was Jim Kelly, back when they were ran the K gun, I believe is what they called the offense, and he would just line up in the shotgun. they get lined up. He'd look at the defense, and then he'd just go through and call his plays. Now, and that's the product of that work week, that week of practice. He knows exactly the plays he wants to run versus what defenses. He has a good feel for, hey, how often are we really trying to run the ball? It's not robotic. Like, he was doing it all on his own, but I think it just gave them the opportunity to play kind of fast break offense, meaning get on the line. And that puts a lot of pressure on the defense when you don't know. I used to love that in no huddle, even though it wears you out, but it just puts so much pressure on the defense to keep up. And so, especially when you have like a dominant defensive line, man, they get so tired because they want to have those 3 and outs where it's 3 plays and they're on the sideline drinking Gatorade. But when you go fast tempo and everyone kind of, 2-minute, everyone knows 2-minute drills are fast tempo, but when you do it from the start of the game, it puts a lot of pressure on the defense. And so Jim Kelly would just sit back and just pick defenses apart. Now, obviously they didn't have the success they wanted in the Super Bowl, but those were very good offense. They had great skill positions. Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, Pete Metzelarge at tight end. So they were very good. And he was, very good. And I would say, I know there's a handful of guys who could do it. I just don't know that they do.
I'm assuming Peyton Manning did a bit of it, right? And Brady did a bit of it, but not all of it.
No, I would say it's pretty rare these days, even though there's probably a handful of guys who could still do it. But I just think the stakes are so high now that coaches would prefer, hey, I'll call it in. I'll get you prepared throughout the week. Maybe I'll send you to the line with 2 or 3 different plays. And then we'll let you get to the best play in that situation, but just call the whole game themselves. I think it's a very rare thing these days.
Yeah. Did you say your offensive coordinator's name was Cam Cameron?
Yeah.
So was his name Cameron?
I don't think, to be honest, I don't even know if his maybe Cam was just a nickname for his last name, but yeah, Cam Cameron.
Sorry, I had to go back to that. That just was funny to me.
And so when I approached this, also, I kind of looked at this as being a multiple week thing, just because there's so many different touch points. Like, I haven't even touched personnel groups because I wanted, the way I was kind of going about it, like, what if people hear on the TV copy when they're at home watching a game, and you'll hear 11 personnel, you'll hear 12. Well, what does that mean, right? And so, and that's just very quickly, I'll get to it more maybe a week or so from now. But, if you hear 11 personnel, running backs are first, tight ends are second. So 1 running back, 1 tight end, and then, just naturally know that means 3 receivers, right?
Yeah.
And so that's typical, everyone's third down, the basic third down offense, 11 personnel. 12 personnel would be 1 running back, 2 tight ends. So that's a bigger package, right? 21, 2 running backs, 1 tight end. Well, how many receivers? So that's 2 receivers, right? So formations, there's a lot to it. And I just want to kind of, hit on a little bit and just make it an easier watch to understand what's going on when you're at home. Some of the things I try to anticipate some of the things you might hear when you're at home watching the game.
Well, I think it's going to be so great when the season finally starts and I can jot stuff down like, oh, what does that mean? And you can help us through that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, good. I like this. This is great. So we'll revisit more as we get closer. We would be remiss not to shout out Jacoby Jones passed away at age 40. He was a wide receiver and a special teams player, primarily for the Ravens. That's where he was known. But I think he played in Houston as well. And I think he played in San Diego for a short time, in Pittsburgh. But it's always sad. Such a young guy.
Anytime we lose guys in the brotherhood young, it just reminds you of, it can be anyone at any time. And you hate to hear it, especially at that, such a young age. I mean, such a young age is just tough.
And then on the flip side here in Tampa, we lost Monty Kiffin, who was a longtime defensive coordinator in Tampa. He developed the
Mhm.
Tampa 2. He took them to the Super Bowl way back before I even lived here. But the Kiffins are definitely well known in Tampa. And I believe it was just last year that he was inducted into the Ring of Fame at Raymond James. So those, I mean, he of course was 84 years old, so that's a
Yeah,
little bit different situation. But the Bucks have been celebrating his life all week here and various social media and things. He was quite a guy.
I think if you'll remember, I think we kind of briefly touched on the Tampa 2 defense a couple weeks ago. We were talking
Yeah.
about the tight ends and how they, really it's tough to cover them in the seam when you just play cover 2 defense. And then the Tampa 2, the fix for that, like I said, the little innovation, the little tweak for that was to run the middle linebacker straight up the field to protect the seams on either side when you run the Tampa 2. And yeah, famously, Lonnie Kiffin
Yeah,
implemented that.
yeah. So should we move into the frenzy?
Sure.
Football frenzy. Here we go. So I told you that I was watching Receiver, the Netflix special, and I watched the last episode this weekend. And I'm telling you, these shows are so good. If Peyton Manning doesn't do one for every position, I'm going to be so upset. I still want that kicker one, but I think he has to do every position. But a couple of things on that. Of course, it culminates in the Super Bowl. So I had to sit through and watch Detroit beat the Bucks in that playoff game. So that was a little tough to watch, but
Yeah.
definitely have a lot of respect for Amon Ra St. Brown. He is really quite an athlete.
Yeah.
And I didn't know as much about him, obviously, before I watched this show. So now when I did watch him kind of tear us apart in that playoff game, I was like, okay, he's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah,
But my
definitely.
big question will be Devontae Adams. What is going to happen with him? Because he is just an incredible player.
Yes.
Definitely had a lot of frustrations in the Raider organization. And then, of course, the Raiders made their change midway through. But what it seems to me is the Raiders have not addressed their quarterback situation. And so here you
Right.
have one of the best receivers in the league, and he's going to have either Garner Minshew or that second year player whose name continues to escape me. But I can't help but worry a little bit for him and his satisfaction with the team. He was pretty vocal about the stuff that went wrong.
Right. And I can imagine, the management is thinking, well, hey, he's such a dominant player. He'll elevate whoever we put at quarterback. And I just kind of tend to believe, look, when you got those special players in their prime, you got to make every effort. And I don't know what their cap situation is. I don't know what their QB situation is necessarily, but you got to make every effort to. It's a dependent. It's referred to as a dependent position because you depend on the quarterback to distribute the ball to you, and so yeah, it's a difficult situation. It's right. Yeah, he is going to have a certain amount of success because of who he is. But at the same time, when you've just got somebody back there who can deal the ball to not just him, but all over the field, it makes his job easy. Like he doesn't want to have to work at the highest level on every play to get open, to get separation, to not be the focal point. And so, it's a team game, and you rely on your teammates. And I'm sure he doesn't want to just throw his teammates under the bus. And he does feel like, hey, I'm Devontae Adams. I'm going to be successful regardless. But at the same time, from the outside, we have the luxury of saying, hey, why didn't they address that position and get him someone who's a little bit more capable to accentuate what he can do, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a tough situation.
It was surprising to me that they didn't do something in the offseason, but I will say that he has a beautiful home.
No doubt.
And he has 2 lovely daughters, and his wife is pregnant with a boy. So I learned all that on that show. But I also, from being a Raiders fan, and from that perspective, I really do hope that Antonio Pierce has a good first year as a as a head coach, because the players clearly love him and want to play for
Yes.
him. So I hope that the fact that they're taking some risks with the QB
Excuse me.
position, bless you,
Thank
doesn't come back to haunt them.
Yeah, I played with him my last year when I was in Washington. He was the starter at middle linebacker there, and he's a good guy. I didn't, obviously I didn't get to know him all that well, but everything I know about him personally and I've heard about it is that, like you said, the team loved him, and I also wish for success. And he's also, I'm always kind of interested in these little football factories at the high school level. Right. And so he's a jackrabbit. He went to Long Beach Poly. And so,
Oh, really?
oh, yeah. So Willie McGinnis, I'm drawing a blank on who else is from, but Poly's got a long list of NFL players who played there. So he's another guy on that list from Poly.
What was the other school in Orange County? Mater Dei? They're kind of like a football machine.
Yes. He was out in Northern California. Aaron Taylor went there, Maurice Jones-Drew, and they had, I don't know what they had the longest winning streak in high school football. I don't know if they still have it, but it was well over 100 games. And they weren't just playing nobodies. They were playing Long Beach Polys. They went to, I think in Hawaii, St. Louis, where the quarterbacks from Oregon, we talked about
Mariota, Marcus
Mariota went to, I think he went to St. Louis. And so they were playing great teams, and they just, I'm just always interested just in the guys that come from there and how these teams set up these super teams, basically.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Now, another tidbit for the frenzy, that today I learned that some of these I knew, but there were 9 players that were also drafted by Major League Baseball.
Oh.
Now, I knew some of them. Do you know?
Mahomes, I think.
Yep.
Hey, still one I got voted.
Bo Jackson, Bo knows, that by the Royals.
Well, of course, Dion,
the Yankees. But the ones I didn't know, Elway, also by the Yankees.
Yes.
Kyler Murray.
Yeah, A's, right?
The A's, yeah. And then Jameis, I guess I forgot that Jameis also played baseball at FSU, but he was drafted by the Rangers.
Okay.
Russell Wilson by the Rockies.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't know this one. Dan Marino by the Royals. I had no idea. And then Tom Brady by the Expos.
Okay.
So that was interesting for me to learn today. I don't know if maybe Jameis would have been better off playing baseball. He might have. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, well, like we talked about last week, at that position, you can play for 15 years, even if you're not the starter,
That's
right?
true.
So
It's true. So that was really all I had for the frenzy, because again, they're all on vacation this week, or they're doing their little camps. Baker has a camp this weekend, a little QB camp, so that would be cute. I should show up. I should just show up. I'd like to learn. But an interesting fashion tidbit that also came out today. Lewis Hamilton, the Formula One driver. So he was announced today as the brand ambassador and guest designer for Dior.
Oh, okay.
And I know that he's very passionate about sustainability and things, but also he's very passionate. He's got a passion for Africa. So whatever his collection is, it's using sustainable fabrications and African inspired. And I guess his collection will come out in October. So that will be very cool to see.
Have you seen his playing?
I've not seen his playing, but I bet my mom has, because she is obsessed with Lewis.
No, I'm a big fan. I'm a F1 fan from way back in Michael Schumacher was my favorite driver growing up. And I think it had to do with, you remember the Wide World of Sports used to come on Saturday mornings?
Yeah.
The whole, the famous announcer, and he used to start off, it's the thrill of victory. Jim McKay, right. And the agony of defeat. that just used to hook me, and I couldn't wait until it was going to come on. And then that's when you would see all the international sports, the F1, the skiing, downhill skiing. And so I just became a Ferrari fan, and Michael Schumacher was the driver for Ferrari. So forever I was a Schumacher fan, and then it was like, oh, okay, well, he hasn't been in the game for a while, and so I just kind of naturally gravitated to, to Lewis. But he hasn't, because he dominated for so long, and now Verstappen has just been going crazy these last couple seasons. So,
But didn't I think he won one recently though, I
I
think.
think it was last year, yeah.
And
Lewis was Hamilton.
Lewis, I think he won one recently. They said it
Well,
was
it
his
has
first one in a while or something.
I'm just wondering, like, again, like the arms race and the back and forth, like what's Mercedes going to do to take the crown back, right?
Yeah. Well, so we'll
Yeah.
have to
So
keep our eye on him. He is a
yes.
wonderful, wonderful dresser for sure. He always
Well,
looks super sharp.
well, his playing, to my original point, I want to say his plane is like fire engine red, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, we're gonna look that up. That's
Yeah,
pretty
I got to
cool.
look it up,
Actually,
but that's stuck in my mind for some reason.
I'm sure Ashton's already ahead of us on that one, and he probably isn't on that picture. And then I wanted to move quickly into food and just something, you and we touched base this weekend, and we, both have discussed that there's just the stress level in our country and our world is just, it's so high, and we're not going to talk at all about politics. But one of the things that just struck me while I was stress cooking, because I was stress cooking this weekend, I sent you a picture of this really beautiful veggie yakisoba that I made from the New York Times recipes. So, Ashton, I'll send you a picture. It was really very good, but it required a lot of very detailed chopping, and so
Right.
it was like it was something that kept me focused. But then I started thinking about, sports and what a unifier sports can be, even though we don't always, obviously we don't like the same teams. We as fans, we're really devoted to our teams, and you go to these games, and yeah, you may like boo or even like get annoyed with another fan that's rooting for another team, but the bottom line is it's really so cool. Let's just say you're in a restaurant slash bar, and a game is on, and all of a sudden everybody's like, yeah, or
Right.
everybody's like, you feel this sense of belonging.
Yep.
And I think I started thinking about it because I was watching the movie Major League. I don't know if you remember that. It's a really old baseball movie, and I just
I
love
do.
it with
Yeah.
Charlie Sheen, Bob Uecker.
Yes.
But how at the beginning, nobody shows up for the games. And then, of course, by the end, it's just like this whole crowd of people, and they're all doing the same chants and the same cheers. And I just wish that we could all kind of remember that and feel that, and know that, we just have so much more in common than we don't. And sports is just a great reminder of that. And it brings joy, even when we lose, and I have shed a few tears at various losses. But the
Yes.
fact is, the excitement and, the conversations you have with people about sports, and it's really special.
I agree, and I just tell people, I've said it for years, that it's one of the few areas where it makes grown men and grown women act like little kids again. Like that, just youthful exuberance is, you can't beat it. And I think that's no matter how cynical you get, oh, I'm done with this team, I'm done with this sport, and then, like you said, you see that exhilaration of people celebrate together, and it just sucks you right back in, right wherever you were. And yeah, like anything, there's issues with it, and you get frustrated with. But then, man, a good win, and it's like it
Yeah.
just feels so good. And like you said, it brings different people from different backgrounds together. Because today we're all Bruin fans. Today
Yeah.
we're all Charger fans, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you on many points.
Well, speaking of childlike, I should send you the video of the I called Elizabeth when the Bucks won their Super Bowl year and they won the NFC Championship game. And
Okay.
you hear me absolutely screaming, shredding my vocal cords, screaming. And her roommate is videoing her listening to me scream
Right.
on the phone, and she
Right.
falls on the floor laughing at her mother. But yeah, truly, like unbridled joy.
So for me, the one situation where it's just I've never felt anything like it. We're in Pittsburgh, my rookie year. It's the AFC Championship game. We're winning the game. Pittsburgh drives. They have first and goal from our 10. Less than 2 minutes left. They run 3 plays. There's 1 play left, and I'm on my knees. I could barely look, and it's just like all we need is 1 freaking play. And they tried to throw a little pass over the middle to the running back, and our middle linebacker knocks the ball down. And it started from my feet and went all the way up my body. And it was just like, there's nothing like that. If they could bottle that feeling, oh my goodness. Right? Like,
Seriously, how
just
exciting. What
yeah,
were you?
yeah.
Were you 20, 21?
No, it's 23. 23. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
exciting was that?
Yeah,
We'll
it
have
was
to
amazing.
go back and watch your Super Bowl, even though I know
No,
it was
no,
winning.
you're not going to miss much.
It's,
I
it's
think-
but Vaughn, think about it. You're one of, I mean, I don't know how many people have ever played in a Super Bowl. You are one
Yeah.
of those people. That is like incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, I think the 50th anniversary of the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
everyone who had played in, they sent out a gold football to everyone who had been on a roster and had played in the Super Bowl. So that was kind of cool little
That's
announcement.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
not like it was play special teams, right? Stan Brock was the starter. I was backing up Stan, and that was Stan's 15th year. And I think he might have gone to a Super Bowl before that, but that was the awesome part. Like the guys who played 9-10 years, hey, appreciate this. I've never been to a
Sure.
Super Bowl before, right? And stupid me, oh no, I'll be back. This is our rookie year. We're one of the youngest teams in the league. I went to
Hard.
one more playoff game.
Yeah, it's hard to get back. That's what George Kittle was saying on the receiver show, because
Yes.
that it's been twice now they've been there and not won it. And
Yeah.
well, we are at time. So thank you, Vaughn, for all of that awesome insight and information. And we are getting so close to the season. I can
Yes.
taste it. And we're recording early this week because you got your boys coming to town. You
Exactly.
could walk around with that song. The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. So next week, we're going to have to set aside a great deal of time to hear about the Del Mar racetrack and the Von Parker gang. Yeah, we're going to skip some other things just to go through this, because
While I was going through it, I'll make some mental notes. I won't let the vino affect me too much.
and photos would be good too.
Yes.
So have an awesome time. Can't wait to hear all about it. And thank you, Ashton. And thank you, everybody, for listening to But First Football. Bye-bye.
Bye.